I thought I would just say a few things about the context for the U.S.-China relationship, and then just say a word about the currency. I think the broader issues are the determining issues. The broader issues are really connected to the transition we see in the region from an old-style American hegemonic order where the U.S. has played the leading role to one where you see increasingly two states that are vying for leadership, a movement from a hegemonic order to what we might call a partial balance of power order. The U.S. is still very much engaged, is still seeking to provide leadership, but China increasingly is the dominant trade partner for almost every country in the region. So what I see as the underlying dynamic that will be the context for these disputes really is the rise of really two hierarchies. An economic hierarchy tied to China, where countries have China as their chief economic patron, and the United States, which remains the security patron for most other countries in the region. So you have these two hierarchies, countries looking to the dragon for economics and to the eagle for security. And I think that puts the two countries, China and the United States, in a very interesting, complex strategic relationship. They are competing, but they cannot compete too hard because the countries in between don't want to make choices between China and the United States. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that's the setting in which we're operating. And I think that given the complexity of the relationship, it seems to me that there will be incentives to find a management of that relationship. There will be growing tension. The American political election cycle, the possibility of Romney as president, who's made some very hardline arguments about China and what he would do on the first day of office, will suggest that we're going to have a rough road. But I would submit to you that the deeper logic of this two hierarchy system is that there will be reasons, and we can talk about this as we go forward, for restraint and accommodation as well as competition.
Yeah, well, that's a very, very interesting question. John, how has China reacted to the fact of that in November last year, the U.S. hosted the APEC summit in Hawaii, and the U.S. seems to be coming back with the more military presence in the region, particularly Australia. How does China view this development on the part of that?
Thank you. The APEC summit was held in Hawaii last November. I had followed the event already. Before the summit, I thought there might be some important events happening at the summit, but unfortunately, I did not see any breakthrough or big event at that summit. And also before the APEC summit, some Chinese scholars argued that the United States will take great efforts to promote the APEC in the U.S. election. But we did not find such kind of thing happening at the summit. I don't think there will be change in the APEC at this time. On the other hand, it seems to me that nowadays the Americans not attaching great importance to that. It's now paying more attention to the so-called GDP balance and the APEC. And among the Chinese scholars, as I know, there are a lot of discussion and even debates on the PPP. Some Chinese argue that the PPP is actually taken by Americans and the balance, has a balance time, even to exclude China from trade group. But some other Chinese scholars argue that it might not be the espionage of Americans against China, because it might be a limitation or impact to some extent. I don't think China might be excluded for the APP in the future, because the Chinese government already hinted that we might join the APP in the future. We don't regard the APP as a closed trade floor. It is open. We could join the APP later.
So I'm noticing that despite the Chinese warning that not to bring up the issue,
I actually do. China has insisted that the negotiations about sovereignty issues should just be bilateral, but it has taken part in multilateral talks with the ASEAN countries leading up to the declaration on the conduct of parties in 2002 in the South China Sea. And I think also the Chinese have now seen in the developments of the territorial issues over the last couple of years that this insistence on just bilateral talks may work contrary to China's interests. You know, this is not just discussed here today, but also in Singapore at the Shangri-La dialogue. And there were lots of articles yesterday and the day before about South China Sea issues, including two very interesting articles in China Daily and Global Times that both warned against the danger of the kind of assessive or aggressive posture that China has shown in recent years, because it has pushed away China's neighbors. Now China needs to bring in the neighbors again. So one of these writers says that China must apply its peaceful development policy. And the other says that there is a need for a global forum, not a global, but an Asian forum to discuss it, to the exclusion of the United States as an external, but clearly multilateral. So it says that sticking to the bilateral stand also means giving up the space and benefits brought by a multilateral route. As a result, other nations have seized the initiative. So in order for China to seize the initiative, it must do so. But then it's a long time before this can really work out, because China is undecided on what it will argue content-wise in the South China Sea. There is one minority school who says that since China wants a full area within this U-shaped line that you can find on Chinese maps, China has to either withdraw from the Law of the Sea Convention or revise it, because that demand is impossible to reconcile with the Law of the Sea Convention that China has both signed and ratified. This is a minority view. Then there is another view that says that China must define certain historic rights that should be China's, even in the areas that are the exclusive economic zones of other countries. That's also a kind of revisionist stand, which is, I would say, non-negotiable. So these two first are the most dangerous ones for China. If China does that, it will simply push away the neighbors for a long time. And then there is a third minority view, which is that China must negotiate seriously on the basis of the Law of the Sea Convention. This is held by those who really know something about the matter. But they are also a minority. The majority simply think that you can wait and see, because when China grows stronger, the others are going to listen. And I think that's a mistaken view, that China will see repeatedly it works against its interests.
Very interesting. In order that this is the first time that Russia was brought into
was election period in Russia, and he said, excuse me, I'm not able. So it's both intention, which not realized. If you allow me, I want to add just a few words about this competition for leadership between China and the United States of America. Everybody is talking about and comparing GDP, but next word must be about population. They have different kind of population and different quantity of population, first. And second, economic growth in China is industrial type. There are some, of course, IT production, but who are doing this IT production in China? If you take the list of huge IT corporations, 500, 480 are present in China, and they are producing something. But it is written on this production made in China, but China's contribution is 5% of it. If you take, for example, very important field like production of chips and chemicals, it's Taiwan. Taiwan, some people were working years and years in Silicon Valley, then came back home, and then created one city which they call Silicon Valley, Taiwan. And because Taiwan is small, market is small, they rushed to mainland China, and practically all chips are made on factories of Taiwanese business. So you must go behind these figures of GDP, of consumer, and this must be explained correctly. That's why China and America is absolutely interdependent, even in economic sphere. This is my remark. But as of Russia's position about the South China Sea, we practically, I have no serious interest in Russia about this. Position is very loyal. We are interested to establish as much as trade and economic ties with all participants, China and Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia. And so we doesn't interested who will win, but we want to avoid military solution of these problems. Just this is our position.
There is one interesting issue concerning Russia or the former Soviet Union in relation to the South China Sea issue. And that is that the Soviet Union and the United States, during the negotiations of the Law of the Sea Treaty from 1973-82, agreed completely that there should be full navigational rights, also for navies, so they should be able to pass unhindered through the economic zone of our country. This was essential both to the Soviet Union and the United States because of navies. But China took the opposite position, and this has now become one of the main issues of contention between the United States and China, because China wants to project power and to prevent other navies from operating in both the South China Sea, the East China Sea, the Yellow Sea, preferably even the part of the Japan Sea. Project power outlets. And the question, I think, what's Russia's position today?
I cannot say official position because I cannot read any place. There is no document with this position. But as of China's disagreement, don't forget that 7 feet is there between China and Taiwan. And when China explains building pipeline by Myanmar, oil pipeline, now some conflict happens, military conflict happens, then 7th can block import of oil to southern part of China.
Mr. Kim, looking from Korea to South China Sea, do you see anything in common element in the dispute that is happening with China and southern neighbors? And dispute Korea has with Japan, Tokyo, or Chinese-Japanese dispute over Kyoto. Is there a similarity?
They are not identical at all because as of October, Japan is claiming the ownership of that small island to which they helped themselves in the course of colonializing chosen dynasty in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. And today we can say that Japan, unfortunately, is still preoccupied by the colonialist mentality. Japan is making an issue that is non-issue at all. And as for the territorial disputes in general in the South China Sea, we are not, Korean government or Korean general is not in a position to take side one way or another. Because if I may borrow Jong Un very proper expression, we need relevant for economic reason and either and Japan for economic cooperation. But we are at the same time keenly mindful of China's moves in the South China Sea and Western Pacific. If China is seeking a hegemony, a China-centered order, replacing American presence there, then we naturally think that that should be put in check. But at the same time, we should be against any American-initiated or Japan-supported, Australia-supported stretch to campaign to encircle China. Then we would be against that.
Yeah, very interesting.
I think that last comment is right on point, and it helps bring some of the discussion here together. I mean, paradoxically, we're observing today at this panel there's both greater integration, more economic interdependence in the region, but there's also a greater old-style balancing, counterweighting. It's not containment, but it's maneuvering to limit or respond to the projection of Chinese power. But we're also seeing certain kind of feedback mechanisms that give us a little hope that there will be some set of incentives for restraint. China has the incentive not to push too hard because it will suffer backlash, as it did in 2010. And it's vulnerable to the oldest problem in the geopolitical book, the problem of self-encirclement, projection of power, creating backlash, and making China less secure at the end of that cycle. The U.S., and this is what Mr. Kim, I think, referred to, that I wanted to underscore, is that if the U.S. on the other side wanted to pursue a hardline containment policy of China, Korea, one of our closest allies, and Japan, and I think countries in Southeast Asia for sure, would not jump on board. So the U.S. has to pursue what I would call a not too hot, not too cold strategy. Can't be too aggressive, but can't be too laid back either. It has to be careful to identify the threats and to redefine and reaffirm the alliance system. So both China and the United States are caught in this double hierarchy, it seems to me, that creates the conditions for conflict. It's there. It's huge and it will grow. Territorial issues, naval arms race, modernization of military is
enough about that intervention. Stein, I have taken up on what John and you said. This growing tension over South China Sea. There will be many reasons. Is it mainly what the U.S. officially said about they don't agree? Or is it from Chinese point of view more extending the tourism and perhaps undersea resources? So what are the main factors?
We will try to hear Chairman Xiaoming's response to this as well. But let me start by saying that I agree completely with John Eichenberg's overall analysis. Within this game, we may say, the territorial issue has both security aspects, national patriotism aspects, and strong economic aspects. There are in fact three kinds of disputes that are often mixed up, not only in the South China Sea, but also in the East China Sea and the Yellow Sea, Japan Sea. One dispute is the one I referred to about the naval right to navigation. In that dispute, the United States and China stand against each other, because the United States consider the exclusive economic zone to be clearly part of the high sea in terms of navigation. And this is also a good basis in the Law of the Sea Convention. But the local countries, some of them, have the same view as China. They want to protect their exclusive economic zones from interference by other countries' navies, like Thailand, like Vietnam. But since the other disputes are so accentuated, they tend to downgrade that and not to play along with China, but instead go towards the United States. And these other two disputes, one dispute is about islands. And there is the key. That there are clear links also between the various territorial issues, the Tokyo Fukushima, the Senkaku Diaoyu, and the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea, because all of them are very, very small islands. The way to resolve this dispute is simply to decide that all of these islands are so small so they cannot have an exclusive economic zone or a continental shelf of their own. That is the easiest, most practical way of resolving the territorial disputes in a beneficial way for everyone. And if you do that, then you can dissociate the island issue completely from what is the main issue, and that is the maritime delimitation. Who will have which zone as an exclusive economic zone and continental shelf? And there you have Japan and China standing against each other with the prolongation of the continental shelf principle, which is the Chinese principle in East China Sea, and the median line principle for Japan, where you need to strike a kind of compromise solution. And you have the demands in the South China Sea that need to be negotiated. These issues, once you have resolved the island issue, in the way I said, you can easily start negotiating about how to do this. It will be complicated, take a long time, but it's been done elsewhere in the world. It's fully possible to do it here as well. And the moment China has taken the initiative to do this on the basis of the law of the sea, it may have agreements that allow for all kinds of exploration together with companies from other countries, of oil and gas, if that can be made.
Well, Stan, that was very, very educational. I was going to ask John, in December 2011, the Qingdao was addressing the deputies of PLA Navy, and he said, we asked the Navy to make extended preparation for warfare in order to make greater contribution to safeguarding national security and war and peace. So this comment to PLA Navy suggests that the Chinese are not perhaps on the way to accepting something that Stein was proposing. Do you see that the Chinese authorities might be moving away from Deng Xiaoping's admonition earlier on filling its capabilities and biding its time? The Chinese now feel strong enough not to be bound by that injunction that Deng Xiaoping left.
young the use of Norway. I think the English translation of his work is quite misleading by saying that what they mean is concealing China's capability and biding its time. I think it's totally wrong and totally misleading. I think the correct translation of his work should be to be modest and play a greater role. That should be the correct interpretation or translation of his work. So I think it's quite misleading to use this kind of translation to analyze things of his work. And also it seems to me that nowadays there are several misperceptions about Chinese foreign relations, including Chinese behavior in the South China Sea. It is almost a conventional wisdom that China claims the whole South China Sea as Chinese territory. I think it's totally wrong. China never regard the whole China Sea as its territory. We only claim the islands in the South China Sea as Chinese territory because we first discovered those islands and we first named those islands. And also on the second misperception about Chinese behavior in South China Sea is that China challenges the free navigation in South China Sea. It's also totally wrong. We never challenge the free navigation in South China Sea. We also argue that free navigation is okay in South China Sea, and we never challenge it. So there are a lot of misperceptions about Chinese behavior and Chinese foreign policy, and including the misinterpretation of this famous sentence.
Before we go further, I will go back to Mr. Twenty's last statement. Focusing on Tokyo, we cannot generalize this issue along with spread with Senkaku or Korean Island because it's against the generally accepted established historical documents, historical fact. So if you are really interested in this issue, please look at historical documents and what it is there and the geographical distance or proximity and so on.
One point is that the Chinese submitted a map to the United Nations of China's claim to fortunes. It's the 8 dotted lines which covers all South China Sea. So until and unless Chinese define what those 8 dotted line or the leaf stung is called, what is the implication of that line, you are going to face people saying that Chinese are taking all South China Sea. So
I would just say that it's very good news that Professor Jong Un says that the 9 dotted line or the 9 dashed line does not mean a claim to the whole territory but only to the islands. This is fully possible to defend in international law, that it's a kind of sign that we demand the islands. These islands are infinitely small. The biggest one in the Spratly Islands is the Thailand-occupied Taiping Lao or Ituaba, which is 1,400 meters long and 1,000 meters broad. That's the biggest one in the whole Spratly area. And more Chinese statements now say that it means only a claim to the islands. But that is still contested in China. There are also others in China who hold the opposite opinion of Professor Jong. Fortunately, everyone will start agreeing on this natural interpretation. To Mr. Kim, when I compare Tokyo with the others, I'm not saying that the sovereignty issue is linked, because the sovereignty issue to the land, the island itself, is specific in each case. And that has has nothing to do with the law of the sea. It has to do with other parts of international law that decide the sovereignty to land. The only thing I say is linked is how we interpret the right of an island to have extended maritime zones. If that is resolved by the court in Hamburg or through negotiation somewhere, either be with the Black Sea or in the Caribbean or anywhere, it will have a precedent for the rest of the world. And you have countries like Japan who insists that an extremely small piece of land outside Japan shall have a vast economic zone, which I think has very little basis in the law of the sea. And once that has been decided, it will have a beneficial effect for the whole region, and in fact for all areas with tiny islets in the whole world. It will make everything easier if you decide that Article 1213 in the Law of the Sea Convention does not give them a right to extend the maritime zones.
Noted, already of first Sino-Russian naval maneuver.
It's my personal view. First of all, there is a shift, recently shift in American foreign policy. In Bali, President Obama told the audience that America is back to Pacific, as if he ever didn't leave this territory. Maybe attention was less, but they are present. And it was not necessary before coming to Bali, to sign the agreement. According to my personally visit to Australia and signed the Prime Minister of Australia agreement on 2,500 marines in one of the military bases in Australia. It was demonstration. Because 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 is not helpful. But it was not friendly demonstration, you know. And simultaneously, Clinton, she wrote an article in Foreign Affairs in which she stated that the destiny of the world will be decided not in Afghanistan or Middle East like before, but in Asia Pacific. And her State Department made some moves to ignore that yesterday, for example, Myanmar, they called the evil state, and they sent back ambassador to this country, and removed all limitations and embargo imposed. There was a scenario that they will repeat this in North Korea, because there was the approachment between State Department and high-level officials from North Korea. But Kim Jong-il died. Then his son tried to launch satellite unsuccessfully, but still one kind of demonstration also. So good hopes, which arose in my spirit, temporarily faded. But I think that I read 2 weeks ago Professor Jong Un's article. I fully agree with him that door is not closed yet. It must be tried and tried to. I am adherent of engagement policy. I have always forced for engagement because it is the only way, according to my opinion, to peaceful solution and unification in not near future, but I'm still working.
I just wanted to say a word about the American pivot when they returned to Asia. I generally agree with the criticism that the term can be used to be understood to be misused in the sense that America has always been there. It's not a return in the sense of being gone and now back. The pivot the same way. But I think what is useful in the term pivot is that it's, as I think Ivo Dalder, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, said, it's a pivot from a grand strategy focused on the war on terror and inland wars in the greater Middle East to a focus on border building in the greater Asia. And that is a pivot. If you were looking from outer space at the U.S. Post 9/11 for 10 years and now today, we would say there is a shift in emphasis. And moreover, when you, as I did, spent many days on trips and at conferences with what we'll call the Democratic Party Asia hands during the Bush years, they were making the argument that the Bush administration was not doing enough to establish America's presence in the multilateral frameworks that were emerging in Asia. And so Condoleezza Rice missed 2 out of 4 Asian ARC meetings and other meetings that sent a message that the United States wasn't totally, not missing in Asia, but not acknowledging the evolving infrastructure of multilateral diplomacy in Asia. So Secretary Clinton has gone out of the way, I think, to signal to ASEAN that the United States wants to be a partner ratifying the treaty on amity and cooperation, the engagement of Burma, Myanmar. There is some heightened activity, new emphasis, and I think, is this an aggressive move? I understand how it can be read in various quarters as that, but it's really I think a reassertion of the credibility, attempting to reestablish the credibility of the alliance system, which I still think is fundamentally a valuable feature of ongoing stability in the region. So, for the first time ever, you had both the American Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary in Seoul last year to in the wake of the shelling and the Shinhan incident, indicating the importance of the alliance system. I think that that is a process that is going to be, we're going to see going on, and that will be part of attempting to signal that in all these different ways, in economic and security affairs, the order that we want to see in Asia is one where it's open, it's infused with rules, the rule of law, the alliances are there, the bilateral alliances are there, but they can be compatible with Chinese security and greater Chinese participation. So there is an attempt to define a region that where the U.S. is an active security exporter and importer of goods, and that is very much up for grabs. History hasn't told us yet what the order will look like, and so it's very important for the U.S. with all of its equities in the region to be playing that very active role.
Yes, just a brief comment on pivot to Asia. From the vantage point of Korean Peninsula, the one of pivot to Asia has made substance because during the election when Obama had elected first time, Kim Jong-il of North Korea had really high hope in him for changing policy from Obama's to softer line. But once Obama got sworn in, inaugurated, Afghanistan and other areas of Middle East. So Kim Jong-un at this point very much. And but eventually United States is going down in Afghanistan and paying more attention to this part of the world. And that's, in my view, what led to the February 29 agreement, which eventually got collapsed. But even so, the pivot to Asia is there as a meaningful strategy defense and very good psychological insurance, particularly when China, as they say, is in peaceful rise, but there are some widespread suspicion among China's neighboring countries about this peaceful rise. So pivot has a meaning, substantive.
I would just add to this that if this pivoting to Asia has lasting effect and does not just become a temporary symbolic move, then it will be a shift of historic proportions because it reverses what another democratic administration, Jimmy Carter, did in 1979 when you had the war between China and Vietnam. Then the United States pivoted to the Greater Middle East, an effect of the Iranian Revolution and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. If there is now a move back to Asia again, it does not mean that you return to the conflicts of the 70s, but the focus in American security strategy may perhaps change back in a lasting fashion.
Okay, let's move on to this question of political transition, which is very interesting. On that, as you mentioned, that Kim Jong-il was disappointed in Obama. And so when Kim Jong-un arrived on the scene, and there was some optimism that maybe this young man will lead Korea in a different direction. So how do you think he has performed so far, and what's the view from South Korea about succession in North Korea?
Actually, when Kim Jong-il's health got worse in 2008, we in Korea began to have sort of peaceful wish for him to hang on long enough for the two Koreas to reach a certain degree of what prevent the Fukushima and put on track talks giving some results. Because anyway, he was a bona fide talking, negotiating partner. Kim Jong-il felt very secure as a supreme leader of the country. So he didn't have to show off, to demonstrate sort of natural leadership by bizarre actions like his successor son does. And hence, even though on and off there were ongoing contacts between South and North, but as you said, his son, nothing comes before consolidation of his power base. He has to consolidate his power base, he has to carry favor, particularly in the military, putting the economy in the background. And as we all know, the military wants to hold on to missiles, to nuclear weapons. And nobody knows how long this consolidating process will take. And until then, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to deal with extreme uncertainties emanating from the wars. That's virtual entity. And of course, there was some hope that because he spent his childhood in Switzerland, the most democratic, the most capitalist, the most wealthy country. So we thought that, well, it would be different from his father. But again, first of all, he should have a strong, very strong, solid, secure power base. That's what they wanted.
Talking about uncertainty, China is one place where there was a lot of certainty until how it gets here, that the political transition is going to be very smooth. Xi Jinping is almost certain to be chairman, and then the things started becoming uncertain after the Koshilai affair. Now, in the light of what has happened since Koshilai's demotion, trouble, and now in today's newspaper, New York Times says that the Chinese apparently have arrested a senior official from the Ministry of Security who was spying for the Americans, and that might have other implications. It's true. So, in the light of these political changes that have happened in China, how do you see the succession is going to be resolved?
I think now there are a lot of discussion about the Chinese domestic politics, especially the so-called political succession process. In China, especially on the internet, there are also a lot of discussion. There are also even debates about the Chinese domestic politics. Yes, the Koshilai affair is a very important event, and it might have some negative impact on the Chinese politics. But on the other hand, I don't think it will have a great implication on the Chinese leadership succession in this war. In this one, the 18th Party Congress is going to be held in Beijing. So the forthcoming Party Congress, the new generation of Chinese leaders will come out. I think Mr. Xi might be the next party secretary, and also the next president, and Mr. Li might be the next premier of China. I think the Chinese political leadership association might go on quite smoothly. So you can see what will be happening at the end of this year.
The one when I look at Vietnam is Communist Party. Ideologically, it's pretty close to China, and yet they are having this conflict over territorial islands. And so one wonders whether there is a good cop, bad cop. Party leaders go to China and say, we are going to others, but the military is asking the Americans to come back. Is there a possibility of
I would not call it a double game or good cop, bad cop, but rather a kind of difficult dilemma for the Vietnamese leadership. Because on the one hand, they have moved close to China. They've had peace with China now for 24 years, since a number of Chinese or Vietnamese soldiers drowned or killed in its practice. 1987, you had the last big artillery duel at the border. And of course, you have the 1979 war also in memory. And the army in Vietnam, all the officers I have talked with in Vietnam are always keen to avoid any new conflict with China. That's an overriding concern. On the other hand, the Communist Party has seen a reduction in its legitimacy internally. It used to be very strong. It is now generally considered to be very corrupt by much of the population. And the Vietnamese population also has a strong ingrained patriotism which is profiled primarily against China. And therefore, if the Communist Party in Vietnam does something that opposes China, it becomes more popular internally. The closer it moves to the United States, the more popular it becomes internally. But on the other hand, that also lets out forces that could undermine the regime through what is often called peaceful evolution, or influence from liberal or Western values. Same fear that you have in China. And that's shared in China. So this is the terrible dilemma of the communist leaders. They are less and less supported internally, and they have to oppose China, but on the other hand, they also need China. That's their problem. On the other hand, also in the Sino-Vietnamese relationship, I see the greatest hope for real negotiations about territorial issues. The negotiators on both sides are extremely well trained and know very well the law of the sea and international law in general. They have negotiated with each other before. They agreed on a treaty in the Gulf of Tonkin. In October last year, the new party leader in Vietnam went to see Hu Jintao in Beijing, and during his visit, they agreed that they would take up again the negotiations. So then the focus of the conflict in the South China Sea moved last year from between Vietnam and China to being between China and the Philippines instead. That's been the hotspot this year. If now they can sit and silently negotiate on the basis of the law of the sea, China and Vietnam can again come up with something that will move towards a solution in the long end in the South China Sea and perhaps in the region more generally. So China can follow the same policy in the sea as it has done on land. As we've seen in analysis, for instance, in Taylor Fragel's wonderful book about China's border policy, China has actually been quite moderate in many border negotiations on land. And it has signed this one agreement with Vietnam and the Gulf of Tonkin. If only China can continue on that road, I think China can secure more peace in the region.
Okay. So in terms of peace outside, as I said, is very important, but China's internal stability also is a major concern for the Chinese Communist Party. Last year, the Communist Party celebrated its 90th anniversary. So in 100 years of the party, how will the party look according to you? Will it be a little more open, more democratic, or will it be much tighter control over opposition as it is now? What's your forecast?
Well, thank you so much for the question. As a political scientist, I never predict the future. I just want to say that the Communist Party in China will remain up and year, and it will still going to be the ruling party of China. But there might be some change. At least there will be change of leadership within that party. But I don't really know what is going to be happening inside the party.
Wen Jiabao has repeatedly called for reform, but do you see any support for his reform, call for reform within the party?
Of course, he got some support within the party. There's some discussion and also debate among Chinese people on the so-called democratization in China. Generally speaking, the Chinese people regard democracy as a good thing, but we have different interpretations about the meaning of democracy, and also we have our own way to realize the process of democratization. We don't regard the democracy as that thing to China. We have our own meaning.
Well, we have basically 15 minutes left. I thought last section I discussed is this interdependence that has appears to be numbered. That was in August. The latest number from the Treasury is the Chinese holding of U.S. credit tickets have gone up. So the fact is the Chinese do need to park their money in the U.S. and U.S. needs to sell its goods to China. And so this independence, how is it being affected by also the rival?
That's a great question, and we, as political scientists, we have big theories that lead us to have expectations about how interdependence will play itself out, and liberals like myself who do think that alignments of interests in economics can have impacts on politics. Our views will be put to the test in the years ahead, because there's no question we have a kind of movement, counter-movement dynamic here. We do have alignments of interests in the economic area, and then we have this other world of security and modernization and arms races, and we have what I think many people would now say is a security dilemma-driven modernization. It's more military modernization than arms races, but we've got that dynamic. It's very old. It's a realist dynamic, and it's emerging. So the question you're asking really is, how will the economic interdependence interact with that security dynamic? Will realist dynamics overshadow economic/liberal dynamics, or the other way around? My own sense is that that there's just the relationship is too complex, the interests are too complex, and the social groups inside of these big countries are such that it's going to lead them to negotiate, bargain, look for compromises, and find ways to manage the relationship. No one country is going to be able to use its economic leverage on the other. China holds a great deal of American debt, public debt, but the experts I read suggest that it's not really usable as a tool of geopolitics. Likewise, the United States is part of a trading system that China deeply is dependent upon, but that too is not something that can be used against China. So I think that looking forward, we're going to move out of a period, I'll summarize now, a period where the conventional wisdom was that China was going to be growing at 8 or 9 or 10% a year into the future, and its economy was going to, in effect, supplant the old Western economies as the dominant world power. That narrative is giving way to, well, China has its own economic problems. Its growth is declining, rate of growth is declining. And we're going to see more convergence of slow growth and true problems of rising and mature political economies. The way I would put it is that the problems of world politics are the problems of industrial society increasingly. And we are all suffering these problems, whether you're Brazil, whether you're India, whether you're the United States or China and Korea, although Korea looks pretty good these days, or Greece. So it's about public debt, it's about fiscal deficits, it's about clean energy, it's about education, it's about science and research and development. And just finally, when President Obama went to Brazil and met the new president, Dilma, he asked her what her agenda was for her issues, and she said it's education, science and technology, innovation policy, infrastructure. And the president said, those are my agenda items too. I mean, really, the sort of leaders of advanced countries, both rising and mature, are all grappling with these tough OECD type problems. And that is the world of world politics today. And it seems to me that it means two things. It means that we're all going to be kind of muddling through at best. There isn't going to be a bright new star on the horizon that leads us into a promised land. We're all going to be muddling through, but we're all at the same time going to need each other. And there's a lot to learn from each other, because no one will be on all issues at the vanguard.
even today. And second, China and Russia signed an agreement that they will introduce using their yuan and ruble. And recently, it started yesterday, an agreement between Japan and China that they are going to trade using their own currencies. So this is balanced with what you described, the growth of public debt.
I'd like to just add 2 points of my own to John Eichenberry's pertinent analysis. In the beginning, you, John, made this distinction between the two spheres, the security sphere and the economic sphere, where the countries in this region have China as their economic patron and the United States as their security patron. But there is this big difference between those two areas, that the United States does not have an alliance with China. But the United States has a lot to do economically with China. So the economic sphere is not one where you have one patron against someone who is outside, like the security sphere can be. And that's where I would add the second point, which has to do with the overall theme of the whole Jeju Forum, because it's the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. And I think there is a very clear connection between peace and the quest for prosperity. I say not just prosperity, but I say the quest for prosperity. I don't think it's interdependence as such that guarantees peace, but it's when the leaders have prosperity and the economy as their top priority that they feel compelled to make sure that you have peace and stability so you don't destroy your economic aims. And this is what has happened in East Asia, that one country after the other have shifted priorities to economic growth. Japan did first after the Second World War. Korea, I think, did it South Korea did it under Park Chung-hee. North Korea has never done it. Indonesia, Singapore, China in 1978, Vietnam in 1986 moved their priorities. But now my fear is that when growth does not continue and the Chinese economy starts slowing down, perhaps it has the same effect on other countries in the region, and then it may be politically difficult to uphold the economy as top priority, and more nationalist impulses may take over. That's my big fear.
Okay, we have basically 7 minutes, so we have a couple of questions on the floor. If there's any question, please answer it.
Thank you very much. My name is Konstantin Luka, I'm from Russia. So I'm very thankful to all the participants for the very interesting and informative exchange of views, especially on the territorial issues, because especially for me it was of great interest. I started my job in Asia, taking participation in border negotiations with China, between the former Soviet Union and Russia now and China. So luckily we have the 100% resolution of all the problems. It's a great achievement. But my question is to all the participants, when we are talking about new regional order, as it mentioned in the theme of our discussion, what do you think when we are talking about political and especially security point of view? Is it necessary for this region, Northeast Asia, to work out some kind of leading principles or code of behavior, or even in other words, to follow the example of Europe
source of the vision for the region. Principles of openness, of rule of law. That's why the law of the seas is so important. I think a kind of modified ASEAN norm about sovereignty and responsibility. It won't simply be sovereignty, but responsibility to protect in a kind of moderated way is one that is necessary. That is to say, when countries are engaged in egregious forms of violence against their own people, there is a responsibility of the international community to respond. The multilateralism, the principle of collective action towards solving problems. So I think there are these principles and in the great power world, the world of sovereignty and Westphalia, the principles of restraint and accommodation. So the ideas are out there. They're in many cases centuries old, and finding ways to tie them into the 21st century Asia is an exciting one. I think that they're there, and I think you can get countries to embrace them, and as many of them already do.
My name is Yoriko Kawaguchi from Japan. What we need to discuss in discussing a new regional order is what principle will govern the region. And the panel really has not touched on this. You talked about economic hegemony, China rules trade, yes. But the rule of the game is free trade. And security, I put it back. China is expanding with its economic power and also increasing military power. But in my mind, unless China changes and it will have certain good cause or a good principle to govern, then it is simply an expansion, imperialistic expansion. So I think in order to make this region peaceful, China will have to find some governing principle or good cause so that countries in this region will follow China. And that's the limitation of this balance of power discussion. I think there is the two countries will go on buying each other, but there will be no solution unless China changes more. Is my view. Just my question on Stein. You talked about the change of the role of the law of the sea, which was interesting, so that the islands will not be counted as a base for the EEZ. But that will not change the territorial issues in that region. Probably might alleviate somewhat of what is happening in the South China Sea, and maybe might change the Chinese claim on Senkaku. But for instance, as my colleague Mr. Kim talked about, Korea's claim has been there even before the law of the sea, and we have the equal claim on Fukushima, saying that is historically ours based on international law, and that will not be changed by the change in the sea of the law. Thank you.
I think it will change it quite radically because it will reduce the importance of the sovereignty dispute to the islands. Because what makes it so hot is the expectation that you can also, through the islands, get rights to economic resources. On your first point, my whole thinking, and here perhaps a question of different philosophies, is that I would be a little bit afraid if China became too much concerned with formulating some kind of good ideology that others should follow. Hu Jintao has tried that with his harmony principle. I don't think it has created a lot of enthusiasm among others. I think it's mainly a question of China to behave like a moderate, predictable power for the neighboring countries, and that will reassure them more than China trying to become an ideological lead star. Okay.
Well, I think generally speaking, China is quite responsible player in China did not violate the international law in the region or in the world. I don't think China is the problem in East Asia. I think this is the perception that China is aggressive power, is too assertive, and is threatening the stability of the region. I think this is, generally speaking, is a misperception. This is not the real China. Thank you.
Okay, we are almost out of time, so I just want to take this opportunity. I'm sorry we are out of time. We can perhaps after the thing you can ask us. I just want to take this remaining second to ask you to thank our panelists for a very enlightening live discussion.
So they are not supporting Korean government. No, not at all.